Had a bit of refreshing break. I would like to welcome you to the last session of the day before the plenary session. I hope that you're keeping a bit of energy for our last three speakers for today. I'm Ioana Zuli. I will be chairing this panel, which is titled Performing Networked Archives. Our speakers is Anshul Roy, who is a visual artist and currently doing an MFA at Syracuse University in US. Livia Folds, who is a cultural worker working across art, technology, activism in Rhode Island School of Design in the US, and Ochi Reyes, who is also a visual artist and a lecturer at the University of Westminster in the UK. I know we are 2-3 minutes already ahead of schedule, so I would suggest that we start straight away and we can go into discussion later. So the floor is yours.
Hi everyone. My name is Anshul Roy. I'm from India. I'm studying MFA in Syracuse University. First of all, it's an absolute honor being here. I can't even believe, because discovering screen walks by Photographers Gallery was the biggest paradigm shift I have encountered in my practice. And let me start this talk by talking about how my interaction with the medium of photography began. I started loving the camera for all its associated romantic notions of going out in the real world and seeing the profound beauty all around us, capturing the essence of the decisive moment, and looking the world with conscious attention. The camera has a very romantic notion, right? The biggest paradigm shift I saw during my graduate studies was discovering that the camera has historically been used as a gun against certain groups of people. I encountered images like the Zeely daguerreotypes, which were made by a biologist, Louis Agassiz, to propagate a pseudoscientific theory of the racial inferiority of black people. I came across images like Marc Garanger's Algerian woman, in which he stripped off these women of their wheels and photographed them under gunpoint. And I also saw that these kinds of images were also made in colonial India. These were images made to show certain people their place and to express colonial power using the camera. And there were also lots of images which were made to propagate the idea of the white man's burden. And for me, seeing this very dark, nefarious side of the medium was like coming out of Plato's cave. I could never look at the camera with the same innocent eyes. And since the last 1 year, I've been grappling with the question of how should we all, as a more ethical and well-informed society, how should we look at these images made under duress? Right? The evolution of photography has left us with a mess. In some ways, these are images which are visual spoils of history. And how should we, as a more ethical society, consume, disseminate, and preserve these images? That's what I've been grappling with in my practice. And this is not a new question. This has been written by Susan Sontag in her iconic book regarding the pain of others in 2003. In my conceptual practice, I'm trying to expand these questions in the cyberspace. I'm very inspired by this essay by Teju Cole called Death in the Browser Tab, in which he talks about the privilege we all have in our society of consuming someone's moment of extreme private grief at the click of our mouse cursor. I'm also interested in the idea of the work of art in the age of digital reproduction, right? Both Walter Benjamin and also John Berger, in his first episode of Ways of Seeing, they both were very concerned with the notion of an original work of art losing its aura when it's mechanically reproduced. I think this issue has been completely amplified in the age of digital reproduction, right? Let me give an example. Have a look at this image. This was an image taken by an Associated Press photojournalist of an assassination of a Russian ambassador in Turkey. Within an hour of this image being posted on Twitter, this became a viral meme. How ethical is it to disseminate such an image in the form of a dank meme? I think it's one way, it's one experience to read this image in a newspaper with proper AP-style caption. It's a completely different thing to encounter this in the form of a dank meme. And hence the fundamental bedrock of my practice currently is the notion of the image as an HTML tag. Most images in our contemporary society exist as a computational object, as an HTML tag on a digital screen. As an artist in the 21st century, I really want to confront this new reality of images. And again, I'm interested in 19th century ethnographic photography in colonial India. I've been looking at such images titled Deserving Objects of Gratuitous Relief, made by a British photographer during a famine in India. This image is present in Getty Museum's archive as a historical object. It can also be seen as a fine art print for $500. You can buy it as a fine art print. It can also be found on Amazon Canada's website as a pillow cushion cover. The basic argument of my work is that certain images have a gravitas, a seriousness, which gets lost when it's disseminated in the cyberspace. So the project which I'm working on right now for my MFA thesis is called Rage Against the Archive. It lies at the intersection of institutional critique, internet art, and ethnographic photography. I'm looking at New York Public Library's digital archives, and I'm looking at this one particular book called The People of India. It's one of the world's oldest and most comprehensive ethnographic publication, published in 8 volumes between 1868 to 1875. It started as a private ambition of Governor General Lord Canning, who wanted to carry back representations of people they had ruled over when he was returning back to England. And it has typical anthropological images of primitive tribes and images of, to express colonial power. In 1857, there was a big rebellion in India, which the Britishers called the Sepoy Rebellion. Indians called it the First War of Independence. And this First War of Independence influenced the publication of a book, The Lot. It was then published eventually by the India Museum, and the whole idea was that we need to document the culture of the native people so that we can rule them better. The camera was employed as an administrative tool. And so again, I'm looking at these images on New York Public Library's archives. I was checking this book out. And I was very shocked to find that you could also buy these images, an image of a famine-stricken group as a fine art print. And this left a very bad taste in my mouth. And I know this thing has a very simple solution, which is to go to the actual archives and talk to them. I did that. At least the person I talked to them, they understood my concern, told that we'll talk to our web team. Nothing happened. Nothing has still happened. And that's why I have been thinking since the last few months that how as an artist should I respond to this way of dissemination of these images by an esteemed institution. And the eureka moment for me in my practice was, again, finding Photographer's Gallery screenbox and knowing that the web browser can be a canvas. I thought that if it is the HTML code which is rendering these images in this problematic manner, why don't I mess around with the website itself? The mouse cursor is an extension of my physical hand in the cyberspace. And the idea of website defacement, which I do using a simple browser feature called Inspect Element, in which I can go look at the code of the website and mess around with it locally on my computer. It's similar to writing a graffiti on a wall as a form of protest. And in my experimental videos, I screen record myself intervening with the website. I problematize the ethnographic book itself, writing messages like these, which make you question these images itself. These are some of the messages which I write. And yeah, I was activating the archives using the inspect element of the browser. I also try to problematize the archive itself, because I think a lot about how archives masquerade as sites of objective memory preservations, right? But whose memory does it preserve? It's a very one-dimensional memory of history's victors, right? The experience of these peoples are completely lost. We don't even know the name of these people. And that memory is completely gone. What they felt about interacting with the photographer, how did they feel being subject of these images? It's completely lost. It's not there. And hence, I thought that as an artist, I really need to activate the archive to bring forth this fragmentary nature of digital archives. And that's why I go to the code, I mess around with it, and I write messages which hopefully make people think differently about these images. And right now, the work exists as a video art. Again, as I told, it's a screen-recorded video in which I'm messing around with the website. This is how it exists in a gallery space. I prefer showing this work on a laptop screen because the idea of the laptop screen as the new window to the world is a very central part of my practice. This is how the work is shown in a gallery space. But wait, I have one more thing. Of all the critical theory I have read about archives and all these things, the one thing which has stuck with me a lot is Alan Sekula's essay, Reading an Archive. In this essay, he talks about how we all should try to read the archive by putting ourselves in the shoes of these people whose voices have been historically suppressed by these machineries of profit and progress. So let me just try to browse the website a bit. Cool. So again, here I'm in New York Public Library's digital archives. They say that they have about 900,000 items digitized. They also know that they have certain images in their collection which might be harmful to view or difficult to view. So they do realize the gravity of certain images they have. And honestly, ever since I opened the first page of this book, this gaze has always haunted me. This is an image which was taken in a place called Bhagalpur. It became personal for me because I was born in this city, in my maternal grandmother's house. I've spent some of the best days of my childhood in summer vacations at this place. And I thought that this might have been a person I could have known. Had I been born 150 years ago, I might have been the subject of this image. I would have been facing the colonial photographer. And I'm not at all an emotional person also, but I have cried looking at some images from this book, thinking how different the interaction of the medium of photography of these people has been as compared to me. And there has been a lot of things written about the fear which subjects used to face in early era anthropological images. I mean, look at this face. This is the face of a person who knows that she is being visually violated in some ways, and how angrily she stares back at this photographer. And this book, again, contains lots of images of people who are scared or who don't know what's happening with them. And this is an image of a tribal person who has been documented as a marauding hill tribe. And again, going back to the image of the famine-stricken group, let's just consider this image for a moment. This is an image of a group at the worst moment of their life. They were starving and they were reduced to compositional motives for the photographer. And this image, again, it still exists as a fine art print. I have actually bought this image from the website. You can add this to your shopping cart, and you can order this hand-printed. Right, I think every time I refresh this browser tab and this image reloads, there is some perpetuation of the initial violence of the camera's shutter. Every time I reload this tab, in some ways there is this continuation of the visual violence which happened in 1868. And if I could make my point even more stronger, this is not something which is just happening with images from colonial India. Have a look at this. This is images from Poland during Nazi atrocities. Images of people being hanged, consumable as an art print. This is such a jarring juxtaposition, right? Images of someone being hanged placed right next to Berenice Abbott's very beautiful image of the Grand Central Station. You see how the archive flattens certain images by equating one kind of image with another. And certain images completely lose their gravity and seriousness. And I think this is completely wrong. This is also something happening with images from Africa. Typical anthropological images, mugshot-like images of the black body being completely, you can consume it as a wall mural if you want. And I think this is wrong. This is aestheticization of someone's suffering. And because of this, I made a browser extension. It's available freely on the Google Web Store. And once you add my extension, all it does, it simply replaces all these div tags, linked div tags, which the New York Public Library uses with my own custom-made image as an act of electronic civil disobedience. It's causing digital disturbances in the website to make you think differently about the images itself. Now you cannot proceed further to the checkout page. This is how I'm trying to deactivate the archive now using my browser extension. And it's a very simple 5-line codes. But it still hopefully makes you think differently about those images. And I'll end this talk with showing you what a good archive is. What should be a good digital archive? This is Yale University's Genocide Studies program. They have images from the S21 concentration camp in Cambodia. In this concentration camp, there were about 10,000 photos of people taken just before they were killed. These are the most horrendous images I have seen. People completely scared of their faith. And have a look at the message which Yale University has on their website. At least to me, it shows that at least the institution is trying to think of the seriousness of the images they have and how more ethically can they disseminate or show these images. And I think this is all I'm clamoring for. This is all my project is all about. It's not about cancellation of history. I'm totally up for showing these images as historical objects. But it's more about how should we contextualize these images in a more ethical way. And how should we look at images of someone's pain or images made under duress on the cyberspace. And thank you. That's all I have.